It's past midnight in Fresno, California. The neighborhood is still, silent, except for one sound. Barking. A dog's frantic cries echo through the dark, sharp and urgent, as if warning of something not quite right. The homeowner jolts awake, groggy but unsettled. He reaches for the remote and flips to the live feed from his security camera. What he sees doesn't make sense. Two white shapes move across the lawn. No arms, no face, just long, impossibly thin legs. Walking, no, gliding, floating across the screen like something out of a dream or a nightmare. The taller one leads, the smaller one follows. And then, just like that, they're gone. In that moment, a cryptid was born. This isn't Bigfoot crashing through the forest. It isn't the Jersey Devil shrieking through the trees. No glowing eyes. No snarling teeth. It's quiet. Simple. Yet strange. A pair of sentient pants? I'm your host, Casey, and tonight on Hauntings and Happenings, we dive into the bizarre and beloved legend of the Fresno Nightcrawlers, California's creepiest fashion-forward phantoms. But more than that, we're exploring a deeper question. Why do we believe in what we see on the screen, even when it defies logic? We'll explore the psychology of video evidence, how our minds fill in the blanks, and what the Nightcrawler reveals about our evolving fears in the digital age. Because sometimes, the real mystery isn't what's on the camera. It's what our minds do after the tape stops rolling. So what exactly are the Fresno Nightcrawlers? Well, that depends on who you ask. To some, they're a pair of interdimensional travelers. To others, they're alien scouts or a forgotten forest spirit, or maybe just a very committed prankster in baggy linen pants. But one thing is clear. These creatures are unlike anything else in cryptid lore. According to Desiree Bowie's article, Origins of the Fresno Nightcrawler, a pants-shaped cryptid, the creatures are small, much smaller than most cryptids we're used to. Each figure is primarily made up of a pair of long, thin legs topped with a small head or torso that barely registers on camera. There are no visible arms, no glowing eyes, and no clear means of locomotion. Just that eerily smooth, flowing stride. Bowie notes that their motion is often described as gliding or floating, and their silhouette is stark, white or pale-colored, elongated and minimalist. They move in pairs, one taller and one shorter, and they don't run, charge, or attack. They simply walk. This story begins in 2007, when a man known only as Jose captured footage of two of these strange figures gliding across his front lawn in Fresno, California. Spooked by what he saw, Jose turned the footage over to the Spanish-language television station Univision, who then reached out to paranormal investigator Victor Camacho, host of Los Desvelados. Camacho later told the Fresno Bee that Jose was so disturbed, he didn't leave his house for weeks. In Sarah A. Peterson Camacho's article, Night of the Creeps, the Fresno Nightcrawler, California's newest cryptid, we learn more about this first encounter. Jose's security system was so outdated that he had to use a handheld video camera to record the footage from his monitor. Grainy, green-tinted images of what looked like pants, walking. Shortly after the footage aired, Camacho attempted to recreate the scene using the same camera angle and yard. Nothing quite matched. And in Camacho's words, "For me, the video is real. Jose didn't make it. Neither did his brother." Then came the second major sighting. In 2011, in nearby Yosemite National Park, a new piece of surveillance footage showed two similar figures walking down a paved path. This video, uploaded to YouTube by a user named Dovis X Life Operior, added fuel to the fire. This time, the video was clearer and eerily consistent. One figure was again taller, the other smaller. They moved slowly, deliberately, their forms seeming to ripple like fabric in the wind. Since then, sightings have popped up in Poland in 2017, Montana in 2020, and even a few vague accounts reach as far back as 2004 in Indiana and 2014 in Ohio. But none of those later videos or claims have captured public attention quite like the first two. Why? Because these creatures are quiet. They don't roar or scream. They don't break things. They don't even interact with people. They simply exist. Briefly, and then they disappear. And sometimes that silence is scarier than noise. Unlike Bigfoot, Mothman, or the Jersey Devil, the Fresno Nightcrawlers don't bring terror. They bring mystery. As Kalina Fraga put in her article, The Fresno Nightcrawler, the cryptid that resembles a pair of pants, this may be the first cryptid to be entirely born from the internet era. Its mythos carried not by centuries of oral storytelling, but by YouTube, Reddit threads, and security camera stills. But while the internet carried it far, the Nightcrawler still holds a special place at home. In Desiree Bowie's article, Origins of the Fresno Nightcrawler, a pants-shaped cryptid, Fresno-based artist Laura Splotch shared what draws her to the creature. "These really intrigued me because they're from Fresno," she said. "They look unique and different. It's a weird thing to fake, but if they're real, that's even weirder." That quote captured it perfectly. Why this cryptid, of all things, became a symbol of strange affection. For some, it's local pride. For others, it's the comfort and weirdness. And for many, it's the power of not knowing. And that makes them different. Because in a world where everything is on camera, when something strange walks into the frame, we believe it must be real. But is it? Before the Nightcrawlers ever walked through our screens, legends traveled by word of mouth. They were shaped over centuries, whispered from one generation to the next, growing with each retelling. But not this one. The Fresno Nightcrawler is a child of a different lineage. There are no folk tales about it carved into stone, no old maps that mark its domain. Instead, it was born in 2007. Captured on shaky CCTV footage, uploaded online, and shared into existence. In Brian Dunning's article, Why the Fresno Nightcrawler is So Popular, he notes something unusual about this cryptid. It doesn't have a strong believer base. Most people don't think it's real. And yet, it's beloved, a staple of cryptid fandom. Dunning writes, "There's nothing particularly thought-provoking in its backstory, and yet it has a prodigious community of supporters that is only likely to continue growing." So, what's going on here? Well, this isn't just a cryptid. It's a modern myth, shaped not by ancient fears, but by digital culture, identity, and the strange beauty of shared wonder. The Nightcrawler's fame skyrocketed after its segment on Fact or Faked Paranormal Files in 2010, when a team of paranormal investigators failed to debunk the footage and declared it fact. From there, it leapt into pop culture. YouTube videos, subreddit threads, reaction memes, and eventually, merchandise. You can now buy Nightcrawler stickers, t-shirts, plushies, perfume, enamel pins, ornaments, and even candles. And that's where things get interesting. Because unlike cryptids of old, creatures like Bigfoot, the Chupacabra, or Mothman, who often represent fear or threat, the Fresno Nightcrawler evokes something gentler. As Bowie explains in her article, the creature's myth is traceable. We know where it began. Digital artist Eduardo Valdez-Hevia, who often includes the Nightcrawler in his work, puts it perfectly. In this case, you can clearly see it started in this certain year, with this certain person telling this story, and then it grows from that. It's very different from the myths I'm used to. And that traceability matters, because this isn't a monster whispered about in shadow. It's one we watched being born, and then we chose to believe it. That kind of belief thrives in community spaces. Forums, TikTok edits, cryptid vines, Etsy shops. Online, the Nightcrawler isn't just a cryptid. It's a character, a mascot, a meme. And for some, it's something even deeper. Back in Dunning's article, he makes an observation that opens up a whole new layer. Many of the Nightcrawler's most passionate fans are members of the LGBTQ+ community. Why? Because cryptids like the Nightcrawler, the Mothman, and even the Babadook have become unexpected symbols of queer identity. These figures are misunderstood, othered, and out of place, and still they exist unapologetically. They don't demand your fear. They challenge your expectations. Dunning explains that Nightcrawler fan art often features rainbow accessories, capes, suspenders, stickers, and pride flair. Especially in recent years, he writes, the LGBTQ community has increasingly embraced cryptids, characters who are ostracized, wrongly vilified, and misunderstood. Exactly the same life experience endured by many who identify as LGBTQ. So the Nightcrawler doesn't just represent the unknown, it represents the beautifully strange, the proudly weird, the quiet defiance of being different, and walking through the world anyway. That emotional connection is powerful. It transforms blurry security footage into a story we choose to share. It makes the Nightcrawler not just a monster, but a metaphor. Because in the end, this cryptid doesn't roar or rage. It simply walks. Slow, strange, silent, through our screens and into our imaginations. And maybe that's the real magic. In a world saturated with content, the Fresno Nightcrawler reminds us that mystery still works best when it's shared. So, what makes that sharing so effective? Why does seeing it on video feel so much more believable than hearing a story secondhand? So here we are, with maybe the most important question of all. Why do we believe in the Fresno Nightcrawler? It's not the blurry footage. It's not the paranormal testimonies. It's not even the urban legend. It's because we saw it on video. And that's where the human brain gets complicated. In Yael Granat and David Igliozzi's article, Psychological Perspectives on the Presentation of Video Evidence, How Perceivers Weight is What is Seen and Unseen, they explore how video isn't just compelling, it's often deceptively so. Our brains instinctively trust what they see on a screen. We feel like we're watching objective truth unfold. But really? We're watching a story shaped by framing, emotion, and selective attention. Let's break it down. When a video shows something, especially something centered, moving, or highly visible, our brain assumes it's the most important part of the scene. Granat and Igliozzi call this illusory causation. We assign agency and blame to what's visible, even if that's misleading. It's the reason why, in legal settings, camera perspective bias can dramatically affect a jury's decision. In Kelsey and Doherty's study, Not All Videos Are Created Equal, Camera Perspective Bias and Video Recorded Eyewitness Identification Procedures, she tested how mock jurors responded to footage of a police lineup. When the eyewitness was on camera, jurors blamed the suspect more. But when the administrator was visible, especially in single-blind lineups where the administrator subtly nudges the witness, viewers shifted the blame toward law enforcement. The footage didn't change, but the focus did. And with it, so did the viewer's judgment. Now apply this to the Nightcrawler footage. The cryptid is dead center, walking directly across the frame. It's not hiding, and there are no distractions. Nothing else competes for our attention. And in our brains, that means it matters. We're also terrible at noticing what's not in the frame. Granat and Igliozzi explain that when we watch video, we tend to underweight the absence of information, especially what's outside the lens. Our brain fills in gaps based on context, emotion, or expectation. It's a concept tied to inattentional blindness, like the famous gorilla experiment where people miss something obvious when focused on something else. Even more striking is a phenomenon called boundary extension. Our minds unconsciously complete a scene, creating the illusion that we saw more than we actually did. This helps explain why many viewers of the Fresno footage recall seeing things that aren't actually there. Details like eyes, textures, or floating movement, even when the footage is too low res to capture that information. The brain doesn't just receive the video, it interprets, it adds, and it imagines. And here's the kicker. We think we're right. Granat and Igliozzi identify a pervasive illusion, the belief that we can objectively evaluate video content. This is a form of naive realism, the idea that we see the world exactly as it is, and anyone who disagrees must be wrong, biased, or delusional. In mock trials, people who strongly identified with police were more confident in their evaluations of body cam footage, even when the footage was misleading or incomplete. They didn't just form an opinion. They trusted it implicitly. This also appears in viewer comments on Nightcrawler videos. I don't care what anyone says. This is real. You can't fake that movement. I know what I saw. What they saw was 30 seconds of blurry video, but they feel like they watched truth unfold in real time. In their 2024 study in current psychology, Raffaella Maria Rabati and Tiziana Lanciano explored how video speed and language framing influence perceptions of intent. Participants watched a man attack someone on a bus. In slow motion, viewers consistently rated the act as more intentional, more criminal, and more severe, especially when paired with harsh language like kill rather than hit. This effect is called speed bias, the illusion that slowed actions imply deliberation. Think about how paranormal videos are edited. Nightcrawler footage is almost always slowed down, paired with unnerving music and dramatic titles like "Unexplained Creature Caught on Cam." This slowness suggests purpose. The framing suggests intelligence. And your brain is already halfway to believing. In a chilling twist, research shows that fake videos can literally rewrite memory. In the Wired article, "Fake Video Can Convince Witnesses to Give False Testimony," Psychologists found that participants who viewed digitally altered video clips not only believed them, but later remembered additional fake details that never appeared in the footage. Some recalled a person falling down, or a second attacker, or background noises that never existed. As the article states, many of the test subjects who watched the fake video reported they saw things that weren't there, and they believed their own memories were real. Now imagine showing someone doctored cryptid footage. Once they've seen it, it becomes part of their internal reality. Even if it's fake, it feels true. So let's recap. We see what's highlighted. We ignore what's missing. We believe we're right. And sometimes we even remember things that never happened. That's the psychological power of video evidence. It's not that it shows us what's real. It's that it convinces us that the real doesn't need to be questioned. The Fresno Nightcrawlers may or may not exist, but it exists in us, in the way we process uncertainty, invent meaning, and cling to the comfort of a shared illusion. So what happens when something this unreal brings people together? What does it mean to our fears, our loves, and the way we identify with the strange? So far, the Fresno Nightcrawler has walked silently through our minds. No shrieks, no glowing eyes, no snarling jaws or clawed limbs. And yet, it lingers. There's a reason this creature has stayed with us, not in spite of its silence, but because of it. The Fresno Nightcrawler lives in the margins, between footage and fantasy, between humanoid and object, between a familiar and unknowable. It occupies a space that psychologists and folklorists alike call liminal, a threshold, and in between, in that space, is where fear thrives. Now, if you listened to my episode about Beltane, you heard a little bit about liminal space already. But in case you missed it, liminality is the discomfort of being in a hallway with no exit. It's the unease of a place that feels real but wrong. It's your grandmother's house at night when no one else is home, the bus stop at 3 a.m., the flickering security cam showing something, anything, that shouldn't be there. The Nightcrawler, with its slow gait and featureless form, taps into that fear. It's not doing anything, but it's there, and its presence dares us to make sense of it. What's fascinating is that the Fresno Nightcrawler doesn't harm anyone. It's not hostile, doesn't even seem aware of us. In fact, some call it cute. Others find it elegant. And yet, it's unsettling. This is the realm of what Freud called the uncanny, when something is both familiar and foreign at once. The Nightcrawler walks like us, but not quite. It has legs, but no torso. Its movement mimics human motion, but just off enough to trigger a gut-level discomfort. It exists on that fine line between person and puppet, life and fabric. It's a specter with no face, no story, just motion. This kind of subtle horror doesn't scream for attention. It seeps in. It invites interpretation and dread, not by showing us fear, but by leaving us space for it to grow. Part of what makes the Nightcrawler frightening is its complete disinterest in us. It never looks at the camera. It never deviates. It simply walks right past as though we aren't even there. And that can be more terrifying than confrontation, because it suggests we're watching something not meant for us. We're intruding, catching a glimpse of something otherworldly going about its business, and our only role is to observe, helplessly, as it passes through. It doesn't belong to our world. Or maybe we don't belong in its. In storytelling, especially horror, we're used to things building up to a climax, a jump scare, a revelation. But the Nightcrawler gives us no closure, no plot, no escalation, just presence. And that stillness becomes a canvas. It forces us to fill in the blanks, just like our brains do when we watch video. It becomes personal, symbolic, and emotional. For some, it's an alien. For others, a forest spirit. Some see a ghost and some see a hoax. But almost no one sees nothing. Because the Nightcrawler is defined by what we project into it. It doesn't chase us, but it lingers in our thoughts. It doesn't attack us, but it watches without eyes. It doesn't speak, but it tells us something about ourselves. Maybe we fear it not because of what it is, but because it never tells us. In the absence of threat, there's room for wonder. In the silence, there's possibility of meaning. And in that liminal space between terror and tenderness, we find a cryptid that may not want to haunt us, but does anyway. Because it's not what the Nightcrawler does that frightens us. It's what it refuses to explain. By now you may be wondering, what if it's just a hoax? Maybe it's fishing line and a pair of pajama pants. Maybe it's clever puppetry, a person on stilts, or some YouTuber's late-night prank that got wildly out of hand. And, to be fair, those theories aren't just valid, they're likely. In fact, in 2010, the popular YouTube skeptic Captain Disillusion made a video breaking down the Nightcrawler footage frame by frame. He showed how simple it would be to recreate the effect using rods, cloth, and compositing tricks. And yet, many people still don't buy this explanation. In the sci-fi show Fact or Faked Paranormal Files, investigators tried to recreate the video using puppets and practical effects, but they couldn't match the motion exactly. They called the footage unexplained. But unexplained isn't the same as unexplainable. And that's the strange thing. Because even when people are shown how the video could be faked, they still believe. And that gets at something deeper. Something we touched on earlier. People don't always want the explanation. Because explanations are boring. They collapse mystery and they end the conversation. But mystery, now that invites wonder. And in this digital age where deepfakes are everywhere and AI can create photorealistic fabrications, we've become skeptical of almost everything. And paradoxically, that skepticism has made us more likely to embrace the unexplained. It's what psychologists call motivated belief. The idea that sometimes we choose to believe something because it makes us feel something, not because it's proven. This looks fake, one commenter says, but I love it anyway. That comment captures the heart of the Nightcrawler legend. Let's say for a moment that the video is fake. Let's say someone in Fresno dressed up in draped pants and walked slowly across a lawn. Let's say the Nightcrawler is just a really great special effect. That doesn't explain why people all over the world are putting it on t-shirts, why artists are painting murals, why kids are buying plushies, why LGBTQ creators are wrapping it in rainbow suspenders and calling it their cryptid icon. And it sure doesn't explain why you're still listening. Because at the end of the day, the Nightcrawler isn't just a clip on a screen. It's a reflection of how we respond to the unknown. Sometimes a puppet on strings is more powerful than a monster with claws, because it invites you to project your own meaning. Is it a hoax? Maybe. But maybe that's not the point. The Nightcrawler walks not toward us, not away from us, but across. And maybe that's enough. We've walked the long, strange path of the Fresno Nightcrawler. We've looked at its origins, the psychology of video evidence, and why something that does so little speaks so loudly. But the bigger question isn't just what the Nightcrawler is, it's why we believe it. And even more importantly, what does belief even mean in the digital age? Because this isn't 1800s folklore passed down around the fire, this isn't a warning scratched into a stone wall or carved into a tree. The Fresno Nightcrawler is digitally born, a myth native to the internet. In the age of memes, misinformation, and deep fakes, belief isn't about facts anymore. It's about vibes, emotions, community. I don't care if it's fake. I love it. That sentiment is everywhere in Nightcrawler fandom. On TikTok, Reddit, Etsy, fan art accounts. The creature itself doesn't have lore, language, or motive, but people project onto it. They give it meaning. Some call it gentle, others call it alien. Some say it's a forest guardian, others say it's a metaphor for queerness or otherness and just the need to feel seen. In that way, the Nightcrawler isn't just a cryptid. It's a mirror. A canvas for everything we're afraid to say but want to feel. Here's the paradox. We've never had more access to information. We can reverse image search, we can analyze metadata, cross-reference eyewitness reports. We know how easy it is to fake something. And yet, we believe more passionately than ever. Why? Because in a world of curated perfection, sometimes a blurry, low-res, unexplained thing feels more real than reality itself. It's raw, it's unpolished, it's not trying to sell us anything. It just is. Belief in the Nightcrawler isn't about scientific proof. It's about emotional truth. It's about choosing to find meaning in something unexplained, not because it's credible, but because it's comforting, or strange, or exciting, or just ours. In the modern world, truth and trust aren't always the same thing. We might not believe a Nightcrawler is walking through Fresno backyards, but we trust the feeling it gives us. The weirdness, the wonder, the way it carves out space for ambiguity, something modern life rarely allows. Victor Camacho, the paranormal investigator who first brought the footage to light, said something that sticks with me. After meeting Jose, he believed the man's fear was real, not performative, and not for show. He said he didn't want to go out of the house. He stayed home for a couple of weeks. Camacho didn't claim the footage was proof of aliens or monsters. He just said the fear was real. And maybe that's all belief needs. So in this digital age of deepfakes and conspiracy theories, the Nightcrawler asks a quieter question. Not, do you believe this is real? But, why do you want it to be? We began with a grainy clip. A silent shape, a slow walk across a suburban lawn. No voice, no eyes, just motion. That's all it took to build a legend. A pair of walking pants. became a cryptid, a story, a symbol. But what if that's the real story here? Not what the video shows, but what it unleashes in us. The Fresno Nightcrawler is less about proof and more about possibility. It's the space between what we know and what we wonder. It's the thrill of spotting something that logic can't quite account for and deciding that maybe, just maybe, not everything has to be explained. We live in a world of screens. We watch lives through lenses, security cams, live streams, social media scrolls. And in that world, the camera has become our new oracle. We trust it. We fear it. We're shaped by it. As we saw in the work of Granat, Nigliosi, Doherty, and Rabati, our brains are wired to believe in what we see. Even when the image lies or omits or deceives, we fill in the blanks. We assign intent. We build stories. The Nightcrawler reminds us that the screen doesn't just reflect the world. It creates it. We don't watch footage to discover the truth. We watch footage to discover ourselves. Whether it's a hoax or a haunting or a hoodie on stilts or a pixelated puppet, it doesn't matter. Because belief is personal. It's intimate. It's not about certainty. It's about choice. We choose to find meaning in the unexplained. We choose to be haunted. We choose to see legs and wonder who or what they belong to. So the next time you check your security camera or scroll past a shaky video online, pause. Let the question hang. What am I seeing? And more importantly, what am I hoping to find? Because maybe the truth doesn't walk on two legs. Maybe it just passes by, quietly, and lets you decide what you want it to be. Thank you for joining us on today's journey into the unknown. If you enjoyed this episode of Hauntings and Happenings, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with fellow seekers of the strange. Got a story, theory, or a haunted hotspot you want us to explore? Reach out to us at our email, hauntingsandhappenings@gmail.com, and you might just hear it in a future episode. Remember, the world is full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and together, we'll keep searching. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, stay spooky, and of course, keep it weird.